All right, time to take a look through the French papers. I'm joined by Alison Sargent. Alison, good morning.
Good morning, Rochelle.
Lots and lots of reactions to Emmanuel Macron's new government lineup, unveiled yesterday.
Absolutely, Rochelle. 22 members of that government, 11 men, 11 women. They are issued from civil society and politicians from the right, left, and center. 20 Minutes calls it a government in working order, ready for action, en ordre de marche. You can see the en marche puns continue there on the front page. The Free Daily says many of the choices were strategic in preparation for the legislative elections. Now, a couple papers are really heralding this government as being quite balanced. Business paper Les Echos says that it shakes up divisions that we're used to seeing in French politics. They say it's a subtle mix that contains just the right amount of balance, surprise, and risk. A very similar response from Catholic paper La Croix. They call it a balanced government on their front page. La Croix also points out that it's a government of experts. Many of the ministers have real experience in their domain, like the health minister, who is actually a doctor. And balance is really the word that we see that keeps coming back. And there's a drawing by CAC on the front page of L'Opinion today, where we see Emmanuel Macron and his prime minister, Edouard Philippe, building their government like they're playing a game of Jenga. It's a game that's called Badaboom here in France. And as you can see, it's quite a tricky business.
Very tricky business indeed. Now, despite the mix of, as you say, centre, right and left people within his government, many papers are saying, if you look closely, it's not quite as balanced as some people might be suggesting.
That's right, Rochelle, especially in the area of gender equality. Le Monde has an interesting article today where they go through the government and look to see if Macron has kept all of the promises that he made. And they say technically Macron has created a government with an equal number of men and women, but that men are still really playing a lot of the major roles. That is with the exception of Sylvie Goulard, who is the defense minister. Macron also had promised to create an entire ministry, actually, of women's rights, but in the end, he only created a Secretary of State. And another interesting aspect of the government that Le Monde points out is that many members have very conflicting views on some pretty major issues, in particular gay marriage. Macron has said he protects and defends the law protecting gay marriage, but not all of his ministers voted for it, and even Prime Minister Edouard Philippe actually abstained from that vote.
OK, well, look, the government is perhaps not as gender balanced as some are saying. It seems, according to the right-wing paper Le Figaro, it's not as politically balanced as it should be either.
That's right. Le Figaro says it's a government on the move towards the center-right on their front page. The paper calls it a moderate government that is going to have to deal with some very non-moderate problems like terrorism, immigration, and unemployment. There are just two ministers from the Les Républicains right-wing party, in addition to the Prime Minister, Edouard Philippe. They are Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire and Budget Minister Gérald Darmanin, and the Figaro reports that they are actually getting kicked out of the Les Républicains party. From now on, they'll have to be 100% en marche.
OK, well, choice they've clearly made there. For left-wing papers, let's go a step further than the Figaro. They say the government isn't on the move towards the centre-right. It's on the right, period.
That's right. For Libération, the government is mostly on the right. And you can see on their front page today, we have an image of Emmanuel Macron balancing all of those names. And we can see that the pile on the right is much larger. Similarly to what we saw with the position of women versus men in the cabinet, Libération says that right-wing members of the government actually hold most of the power, even though the left is the side that Macron has really been showing off. And they joke in their article that the right will manage the cash box while the left writes poems. And the critiques don't end there. Libé also says that none of the members who come from civil society are blue-collar workers. None of them are farmers. They all have pretty high-up positions. And only two people in the government visibly come from a racial minority. Communist paper Humanité joins Libération in their criticism of the new government. On their front page today, they say behind the good-looking composition is an economically liberal war machine.
All right, and what if we want to judge ourselves?
Rochelle, if you want to judge yourself, you can read Aujourd'hui en France, Le Parisien today. They go through and they explain who all of the new government members are. The paper takes a close look at the new ecology minister, Nicolas Hulot. He's an environmental activist and really a household name here in France. He presented a very well-known nature show on television, and they call him La Sensation Hulot, and they say he's a bit of a war prize because many other presidents had tried to get him into their government and he had always refused, but for Macron, he seems to have made an exception. And the Parisien says, though, that Macron should watch out. It's a little risky to have him in the government because Nicolas Hulot is someone who has very strong opinions and really sticks to them, and that could be dangerous for Macron, who didn't really prioritize the environment in his campaign.
So it's the Parisian today if you want the ins and outs of who's who in Macron's 22-person cabinet. Alison Sargent, thank you very much for the press review there.